This meeting is being recorded.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Bogey Proof. It is U.S. Open week. The third major of the year is here out at the Country Club in Brookline, Mass, just outside Boston. Great week to be a masshole. There's a lot going on in Boston right now. The Sox are in town Wednesday through Sunday. Game 6 NBA Finals. The Celtics are going to be there. I think, Thursday night? I think they're going to be there. Like, a lot going on in Boston, and we got one of the most historic venues of the Country Club. Hosted Ryder Cups, the Francis We Met story, etc. We're going to get into that as we go. But we got myself, Mikey, Erik, and producer Paul on the line tonight to break it all down. Gentlemen, how we doing? Where are we calling from? And what are we sipping on? Erik?
What do you got, Erik?
I have got vodka lemonade.
Oh, yeah.
Really mixing it up tonight. It is hot as hell in Charlottesville, Virginia. 5 p.m. today, feels like temperature was 110. So,
Oh my God.
Vodka lemonade, a little refreshing drink. Rolling right into the U.S. Open week.
Hell yeah.
I like that, Erik. You got to get the proportions right here when it's heating up. When it's a little cold, a little extra Tito's. When it's a little extra hot, a little extra lemonade. I get that. But calling in from Chicago, back in the Midwest, got a little fit wine here, low sugar red wine, Cabernet. Mixing it up. I think it's like $12 bottle, but having a little fun on a Tuesday night as we do this recording. Really excited for this week, U.S. Open. Also hot as hell here in Chicago. It's like 97 out with index up in the mid, like 105, 106 here. Cooling down a little bit towards the weekend, so excited to get on the golf course when I'm not watching the U.S. Open. But Dogfish, there it is.
Shout out TJ, friend of the program, Boston Beer Company, Dogfish Head.
Paul, where are you coming from? What do you got?
I'm coming from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and just staying at the summer house, working on the golf game all year. I just have water today. I went on a little trip yesterday over to Farm Neck, played some golf, and ferry to and from. Long day, a lot of beers, and I just wasn't looking forward to having a beer right now, so or anything like it. So you could say I'm still recovering.
Happens to the best.
Yeah.
Ferry rides. I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, I'm calling in from Newington, Connecticut. Got the new house. We're all moved in, kinda. The internet is still a little volatile, but we will get there. And we are going with, again, shout out TJ. We got a little Truly. It was not quite in the hundreds or 90s here, but it's humid as hell in Connecticut, and it's not refreshing at all. So I'm going to refresh myself with the Truly tonight. But excited to get into the U.S. Open, guys. What is number one storyline, or what are we thinking going into the week? Like, where do we begin, really? Do we just get right into the players here? Are we riding hot hands this week? Are we going with horses for courses with the Matty Fitz? Are we just going U.S. Open stalwarts of the last 5-7 years? Brooks, Koepka, Xander, guys of that nature. What are we thinking? What's our initial takes for the U.S. Open at Brookline?
I mean, you gotta make note of the fact of we've got maybe 5-10 guys this year, and maybe we'll say it's closer to 8 or 10 that have just been superstars all year long, right? 6 guys that have won twice on tour, guys like Max Homa, Hideki, obviously Scotty Scheffler killing it this year. Sam Burns got a couple wins, and then JT just in ridiculous form as of the last month, winning the PGA, seeming like he can hit every golf shot there is. So I'm looking in that group for sure. I mean, there's some value in guys like Matty Fitz that you talked about. Still think Harold Varner's playing some great golf. Was a little early on that pick for the PGA, but like how he's playing too. So staying true there. But that's kind of where my head's at. But there's so many people playing so good right now. You got to think, even on a tough golf course, we'll get into the golf course a little bit more later. The scores are going to be decent, just with how well everyone's playing, even if it does protect par.
Yeah, right now, like you said, I think you go through the top 4 kind of favorites this week between Rory, who coming off a win and has been in the top 10 seemingly every week for the last 2 months. Scotty Scheffler, who won 4 or 5 times already this year, including the Masters. And it seems like nobody's talking about him this week with all the live stuff and JT, Rory stuff, and so many other things going on. Like Scotty Scheffler again somehow not being talked about, which makes no sense. And John Rahm too, defending U.S. Open champion. We all know how good he is. Like again, riding under the radar. It seems like there's so many guys, and that doesn't include any of the multi-winners on tour this year that Mikey listed off, right? So it's like there's just a lot of like power talent at the top this year, hot hands galore, it seems like. So it's like really, it's tough to really pick one guy, and if you're making a true pick this week, and if you're making a DFS lineup, it's tough to figure out which guy you're going to spend all your money on, because it seems like there's 6-7 guys that if they, put it together this week and go out and win this thing. So it's exciting though. It's a fun time to watch golf when you have that many big names, big personalities at the top of their games, and, winning tournaments and winning majors and competing to get against each other. It's exciting stuff. I think, outside of those, big guys at the top, right? I mean, it is first time U.S. Open's been at Brookline since like 1980 something.
88, yeah, 88.
And then they had the Ryder Cup in 98 with those horrific shirts that Justin Leonard hit the walk-off putt on 17 or whatever it was. And then a USAM in 2013. I think they've hosted a bunch of other USGA related kind of championships throughout the years, but those are the kind of the big ones in the most recent memory. I don't remember the Ryder Cup. I was 3, but it seems like they've done a lot of work to this golf course since then. Paul, I know you have been lucky enough to get out there and play it a couple times here and there. I know your dad's played it. What are your kind of insights on the course? What should we be looking for as we try to pick guys to watch this week, or pick players to bet on?
I mean, I'm trying to think. There's a couple long par fives, and they're not just rolling out and giving anybody a birdie on a par 5 this week. I mean, I think one of them's like well over 600, like 630 or something like that. And it's a 2-tier fairway in one of the small screens on property. It is just a crazy golf hole. And then I think the other one is another like 540, 550, but all uphill second shot. And if you don't carry it to the green, you're coming back down and having 50 yards up a hill for a chip shot. And then, I mean, every par 4 feels like you have 180, 200, 210 yards in. It is I guess a true U.S. Open, that it is going to be a grind out there. And I'm looking forward to it. And I know, like you mentioned, that, I have played there a couple times, that they're not even using a routing that they've used before in U.S. Opens, that they're putting like, I think off of 5T, there's like condos or an apartment complex, and the USGA is leasing land from the owner just to squeeze another tee box to stretch the hole out to like 310 yards instead of playing at like 290. They're doing some real interesting things to try and get. I mean, again, the course was 1800s, 1890s, and like it's a small piece of land, and you cannot. It's houses all around in a college campus. They can't just swallow up more land like Augusta can. They are strapped of what they can use.
It's going to be a logistical nightmare. It seems like. I'm excited to see how that turns out for all the people, like, being in Brookline, not that far away from like our kind of home base here. I know a bunch of people that are, working the event, got tickets for practice round, whatever. Like, I'm very interested to see the feedback on like the logistics of getting in and out of that place. Cause given how small it is, how it's a US Open, it's, the biggest crowd, biggest field, et cetera. Like, I'm interested to hear the feedback on that, because I can't imagine that being just an absolute like nonsense situation. I mean, Boston traffic stinks in general. Never mind little piece of property, golf, and trying to fit thousands of people in there. So interesting.
I started hearing some complaints about it a few weeks ago, starting because I don't know what you want to call them. Those massive highway signs where they warn you for construction, like they'll put up different messages. They had those things all over the highways and a bunch of the main routes in and around Boston, warning people of the traffic for this week. And even like last week, the traffic starting, players getting in early.
Yeah.
Just all of that warning of road closures and whatnot. It's like, I don't know. Are guys gonna miss a tee time because they can't get to the course? Like I don't know. I don't know what
Louis
time.
Escorts, Rory at Medina coming in hot.
Yeah, like in it, to get to the course, it's not like it's right off of a highway either, or you can go like it's a direct route. It's a very windy neighborhood road. I mean, Francis Wilmette used to, grew up in that house right across the street.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating plot of land, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a
Yeah.
great piece of property.
Yeah, I'm interested to see because I've heard so many good things, and it's half of a home game, right? I'm interested to see how it stacks up against the U.S. Open and things of that nature. Do you guys, like Mikey, Erik, do you guys have any insight on like style of play we're gonna have to look out for here? I mean, U.S. Opens are always seem to be, it's got to be pretty well rounded, right? Like, but is there anything that sticks out, especially at the Country Club versus maybe previous venues, whether it's Winged Foot or Aaron Hills or whatever?
Yeah, not a ton. Little insight from a friend of the program, Justin Feldman, full-time engineer, part-time bag room attendant at the Country Club. Guy gets it. He graduated from Tufts. He's a year younger than me, so I think he's 25. But he spends his Saturdays during the spring, summer, and fall. He works one shift in the bag room, free golf at the Country Club.
That's
And
awesome.
they love him there. So
It's a good setup.
yeah. So if you see a guy in the picker on Saturday and Sunday, he's working the range. I know that Saturday and Sunday. So excited, maybe a couple of funny Snapchats from him with some of the people. But yeah, he kind of gave us the insight of the hands just need to be pristine this week. Tight lies, uphill, uncomfortable chip shots to kind of small, severe greens. You're going to miss greens this week with how small they are. Really, Pebble Beach is the only U.S. Open venue, let alone probably the smallest greens on the PGA Tour this year for 2021 to 2022. So you're going to miss greens, and being able to deal with different lies, whether it's fescue or long rough, right on something like 11, that's 120 yards, that doesn't have any short grass around it. If you miss it, you're probably going to have a tough lie in a bunker or in kind of like a high grass bird nest kind of lie. Or like to Paul's point, right, on whatever it was, 14 or whatever the par 5 on the front is, like you're going to have to hit some crispy like 60-yard pitch shots this week, and you better control your spin. And sometimes 8 feet, 10 feet below the hole, or like, on a plateau is where you have to hit it, because when you go after that pin, you bring bogey, double bogey into play. And sometimes a putt for par from 10 feet is all you can really ask for in a US Open. But yeah, not too much insight. I'm really excited to see kind of the nuance of the golf course, right? They're talking on the coverage a ton, rock outcroppings, blind tee shots, blind second shots, stuff you don't see on the PGA Tour, let alone in a major championship. So excited to kind of see, I think the players are enjoying it thus far. Some cool commentary from Max Homa saying, it's very fair, but you need to know what you're doing out there. So interested to kind of see what happens when we get, championship round conditions and it's a little firmer, it's a little faster out there. Rough hasn't been cut in a few days, tough pin locations, not practice round pins. What's kind of going to be the reaction from these players? Because it might not be, so nice. You might get a couple caustic attitudes or, bitter attitudes coming off the course on Thursday afternoon.
We going to lose the golf course this week? Is that what you're saying?
If Zach Johnson was here, he'd be questioning it. I don't know. Does he get a exemption this week for being the Ryder Cup captain? Hopefully not.
I don't think I've seen his name anywhere.
I haven't seen him play golf in quite some time, to be honest. So
yeah, I think the last time I saw him play golf, he did his good old top one off the tee box, taking a practice swing.
Yeah, at Augusta. That's right. He did that again this year. Yeah, we
Paul,
don't need any more of that.
Paul, I got a golf course question for you, Paul. What's 18 green like? Because a couple things that I've heard is that there's not many pinnable locations on 18 green.
No, there's not. I guess it's a 2-tier green, basically on a slope as well, if that makes sense. Like there's the back is pretty elevated, and I I mean, again, I don't know how much they've expanded the greens, but I can't see them putting a pin in the back because you can, if you're long, that's a brutal chip coming down to a flag, nowhere to stop it. And they brought the green in closer to the bunker short of the green. And so landing a ball right over that bunker is just going to ricochet it, probably up the hill. But I'm trying to think of like what kind of club the guys will be hitting in there. Probably like a mid iron or something like that. So it's not going to be easy to stop the ball. Yeah, it's pretty severely sloped and like I don't know, a 2-tier green with a massive slope on the back for the top tier. It's a fascinating golf hole.
It's a long par 4, I assume.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's like 450-ish. So I mean,
Dogleg left.
Yeah. So I think the majority of the field, if it's firm and fast out there, will probably hit short iron in there. But like, there's a difference between gap wedge and 8-iron. So I think it's going to be a matter of like if people can hit something, or like a guy like Rory who can move it right to left and get one down there and control the spin on a 130-yard shot, as opposed to Abe Ancer or Webb Simpson, playing from 165 yards, trying to control their golf ball there. We're gonna see a lot of different kind of golf shots. I think this week on a hole like 18. Fascinated to see kind of like the uphill, because there seems like a lot of uphill second shots, and like not a lot of
firm greens.
Like not a lot of, and because they're not big. I mean, I think about like 10's 499, and like it's the second shot is like uphill, and there's no way you can't run it up there. So like I'm wondering, we're gonna get some awkward bunker shots. We're gonna get people kind of all over the map. I think this week, gonna put a premium on playing from the fairway like we always do in the US Open. But yeah, I'm just excited to see kind of how players react and see how, but it looks like it's going to, from everything I'm hearing, it's going to protect par. So Paul, is that your anticipation this week?
Yeah, I mean, even 10, like that T-ball, you mentioned like the rock outcroppings, like you can't see their landing zone. If they're flying at 290, 300, they won't be able to see the ball land. And then you have to hit that shot up a hill, and you can't, there's no fairway around it, just a bunch of bunkers. But I mean, there's like, it's been going around social media, like the 9th hole, that landing area, the little dogleg right down a hill and just pond to the right, in like just past the landing area, where if they hit it far enough, like 270, 280 on the right side of the fairway, they can either be in the water or runs all the way down into rough. And now you have to hit a delicate shot out of US Open rough to a small green. There's going to be some very interesting golf holes out there, and like, I'm interested to see it from TV, where like some of the tee boxes are that they use, because I think they're going to be sharing a tee box for like 10 and 8, and the 10th tee box that they're also going to be using for 8, it's like nowhere near where like the 8th hole members tee boxes. It's nowhere near it. And even like I think it's, so they're not playing 4 from like the main course, because the amateurs mentioned to it, because for the main course that the 4th tee is closer to the 3rd green than it is the 5th tee. And so the amateurs had to walk all the way basically back to the 3rd green to get to the, like, yeah. And I guess a few amateurs were like, the pros are not going to like that walk at all.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting. I mean, it sounds like all these different things, right? The actual like layout of the holes, the rough, the conditions, the routing of the whole, like the routing of the golf course, all these different things. Like, and as most US Opens do, which is why I love US Opens, like it's going to come down to like who's going to be the most comfortable while being uncomfortable the whole week, right? Whether it's the blind tee shots, the undulating fairways and kind of slopes around the greens and weird chip shots and things of that nature, or just like, just US conditions period with the long rough and the difficulty of it and, the way they protect par. I'm just excited to see like, and you always see just really weird decisions at US Opens because people are so like in their head about like how hard it is, where like when you were describing 18 with like, a front to back big double tier thing and then like a slope off the back, I'm picturing people being afraid to chip it down to the bottom and like straight up chipping sideways behind the thing just to get an easier chip back the other way. Like I'm just looking forward to the chipping it backwards out of a bunker. Like, I don't know, all the weird shit that you see at US Opens because guys are so like in their head of the difficulty sometimes that they make things harder than they really would be if they weren't playing in the US Open. But US Opens are just the best. You can't beat it. I can't wait to see, the test of like the golf test as well as the mental test that US Opens bring, because there's some guys that can pass the golf test all day long that I don't know if they're going to pass the mental test. Like Terrell Hatton, like, I don't know, man. I don't think he complained about the way Augusta National was set up this year. Like he complained about PGA, like he complained about every major he's been in the last 3-4 years, it seems like. So I can't see that producing good golf results at the same time. So there's just a handful of guys that if you're making picks, set in the DraftKings lineup, shout out to, Daily Fantasy Cup are running, like those are things you got to consider on a US Open week. Like, are these guys going to be able to withstand some bad bounces, some bad breaks? Like you said on, I think, what is it, the 9th hole? You hit it on the right side of the fairway, you're going to end up in the pond. Like that's not something that happens every week on the PGA Tour, So there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way, and it's who's going to like be like, all right, whatever, and like keep it rolling, and who's going to be like, we've lost the golf course. What is this setup? Blah blah blah. Like, because people do that. You see it every major championship on PGA Tour. So I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of stuff. And then, I mean, do you guys have anything else on the golf course, I guess, or any other kind of guys to watch, or do we want to get into some off the course stuff a little bit and maybe like just physical appearances and start with Phil Mickelson and his like homeless man looking beard kind of deal and like going no hat in the practice round and just showing that hair is a lot thinner than I think he'd like it to be on top. Like Phil doesn't look good. I mean, we can get into live stuff a little bit. We'll do a separate podcast on that next week, I think, once we get the results of this US Open and things of that nature behind us. But what like initial thoughts on Phil, whether it's the press conference, how he looks, like what do you expect out of live affiliated players this week? Like what do you guys predict would happen if, I mean, DJ is probably the most likely to, or maybe a Taylor Gooch, but like what happens if one of those guys are like, top 5 going into Sunday? Like, does the sports media just go absolutely bonkers? Like, it's been already ridiculous this week. Like, you can't even watch Golf Channel anymore because it's the same story over and over and over and over again every 15 minutes right now. But what are your guys' thoughts on like Phil specifically, and then maybe some more of the kind of hierarchy live stuff?
I don't think Phil breaks 80.
I agree. I'm certainly rooting for that, but I also think that's a very good chance. He hasn't played a real competitive round of golf since Torrey?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What?
How did he play in London? Did he play?
He shot like 2 over or something.
Oh, okay.
And I don't really know anything about that golf course. It seemed super uninteresting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Andy Ogletree shot like plus 20. So
I did see that. Yeah.
But I feel like the most intriguing thing for me this week with all these live guys and, Phil Mickelson probably, or like, DJ, Kevin Na, Taylor Gooch in specific. Like, I think what's the reaction to it? Like, I think we've seen it. There was some commentary on Twitter or whatever about like Jordan Spieth not even acknowledging Kevin Na on the practice tee. But then you got Max Homa playing 2 straight days with Taylor Gooch, right? Because that's his buddy for practice rounds. Like, I think Justin Thomas said it nicely, right? Like, it's not personal. Like, they have the right to make their own decisions. Like, I have my opinions. I'm not going to think any less of these people. So we're just going to have to see kind of where that goes as far as like relationships. I think everyone's professional, right? Like, they're not going to not play a practice round with their buddy because they don't play on tour anymore. Like,
right.
right? If Ricky Fowler loses his card like he's going to this year, like when he comes out and plays, like he's going to play with Jordan and JT like he did today in the practice round, even though he's an alternate. Like, I don't think we're going to have like these crazy severed relationships. If Phil continues to act like he is at the moment and kind of feeling like he's almost a politician at this point, or like Bryson DeChambeau answering everything like, oh, this is a business decision for me. Like I'm going to create entertainment wherever I go. Like this is not A, B, and C. This has nothing to do with the tour. Like I guess if it gets to the point where questions are just not answered, but I don't know. I also think there's the other side of the coin where it's like, to your point, Matt, it's just gotten so ridiculous now that like, how can you even answer a question appropriately and not get frustrated with the media when all you've answered for days and weeks on end is about your decision? And like in Bryson's interview specifically, I don't know who was doing it, but like he asked him the same question in 10 different ways for all his questions. Like
trying to get him to slip up and say something.
Yeah, like at some point, you just like, you're a human being, you're gonna crack and you're not gonna want to answer that person. I don't care if you love that journalist and he's been great to you over time. Like that's not gonna work.
Right.
But I don't know. I just don't think the fields are strong enough over there right now for us to like really
care about it.
Care that it doesn't impact PGA Tour events enough right now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if DJ wins the US Open, this is a different conversation. Or if Kevin Na finishes top 5 and is in the final group on Sunday, and all we can see is his Golf Saudi, logo on his collar, like then it becomes maybe a little bit different conversation. But I'm kind of whatever about it. Even though DJ is on the Live Golf Tour, like I want him to play in the US Open. He's a top 10 player in the world. Like he makes the field better and it makes it a better tournament. Until it becomes more of a distraction on the course and the quality of the product that we're watching on TV is worse, I'm okay with it.
And that was kind of where I was going to go too. Like, the media, obviously that's their job, is to like kind of stir this stuff up, right? Like if they don't talk about this, what are they doing? But do you guys think from like a fan perspective, like people on the grounds this week, like do you set like, I mean, like, is somebody going to get like booed? Like, like, is it going to be that bad? Or do you think that this is like the media doing what the media does and just stirring and, poking the bear and trying to get the spicy headline and all that stuff? Because I mean, like you said, unless it gets egregious and like kind of keeps people answer their questions worse and worse or something like that as we go, or like somebody snaps at somebody, like fans aren't going to fans are always going to be like, oh, this guy, like, like the classic, like social media, right? They'll tweet like, look at this guy, what an asshole. And then they'll see him be like, Phil, can I get your autograph? Like, it's like, I feel like, it's getting stirred up with the media and kind of getting exhausting at this point. I'm ready for them to just start playing some golf on Golf Channel, to be honest. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be talked about in the media and things like that. But I'm assuming your on ground experience is no different. Like you're saying, the players are still going to play with them in practice rounds. There's not going to be any beef if they get matched up, right? Like this isn't like if Phil gets paired with like if say they put him with JT this week, like is JT and going to give him shit all day? Like, no, they're going to go play and compete for the US Open, like, so it's interesting stuff. I think it deserves, some attention, but I think Brooks actually, he can be kind of tough to deal with sometimes with his interviews, but he did make a pretty good point today with, I think, being like, listen, guys, this is the US Open. Like, can we talk about that next week kind of thing? Like, I think he didn't say it as gracefully as that. He was kind of like, you guys are putting a black cloud over this. Like it's blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not that easy. They have to ask questions because these guys have been dodging media until this week. But I do get his point of like, hey, I'm preparing to win like a US Open major championship, historic venue, ton of history here, ton of history on the line for him as a player, right? His legacy, he's going for his 3rd US Open, his 5th major, which will put him in like super elite categories for getting to 5 majors and 3 US Opens. I don't know many people besides Tiger that have done that. I'm sure Jack did, but other than that, I don't know if there'd be anybody else. It's like at some point we need to realize like this is the US Open week, not like let's ask questions about the Saudi League week, and I think hopefully once they tee it up on Thursday, we focus more on that because Brooks can be tough sometimes, but I did agree with that point he made today.
Oh, it has been exhausting. Like I'm tired of hearing players have to answer questions or try to answer questions about it that have nothing to do with it. Like if the reporters really wanted an answer, why don't you go to one of the Live Tour events? I'm sure Greg Norman will open any reporter with open arms to one of the events. And I mean, I'm no geopolitical
For sure.
expert or anything like that, but like, I mean, the DP World Tour or whatever the Euro Tour calls themselves now, like
Yeah.
I'm sure they have some
They had
kind
the
of a
Saudi event for
partnership.
the last 7 years, right?
Yeah, and they have an event in China. So I
Yeah.
mean, not that I'm comparing, like, you know, it's still you could argue that neither country does great things. Um, you know, they're questionable at times, but like it just seems like I don't know, like even
Exhausting.
Monahan, yeah, Monahan this weekend, like he took it personally that people left the PJ Tour, and it just I don't know, like it happens every like 20, 30 years. It seems like that there's another golf tour, golf league, and I mean Greg Norman was behind one years ago that got shot down, didn't get any legs. Now he's the
Even
face of this one, and
yeah, and even Jack and Arnie, I mean, they didn't go to like, it was the 60s, so it wasn't a similar situation like financially and things of that nature. But they were looking to start their own thing, like domestically. It sounded like, if you look back in kind of the archives and things of that nature, of being like, hey, between me, Arnie, Gary Player, and insert a couple other guys, right? Like people are buying tickets for us, and we're making, back then they weren't making $1 million every time they won a tournament, right? So like every 30 years, it seems to be kind of cyclical of like, hey, the top guys realize that they're bringing in all the dough and getting, proportionately not enough, right? And like it comes to a head, every 20, 30 years that they have to kind of rethink and revamp and try to figure out a way. Like I think the result of the Greg Norman stuff was the WGCs that you see today that are limited fields, massive payouts, right? Like because he threw a fit back then and tried to get something going, we kind of have a little bit of a Band-Aid kind of thing on it, but we can go into that history and things of that nature a little bit more in another pod. But I do think there's a point there of like the Jay Monahan thing. Like I really think he was doing that for the fans, to try to get the fans riled up, because there's no way that's how you address your players about a matter of this nature. Just be like, like I think shout out no laying up guys like DJ Pye was like, he basically went on there and said like, we make it way harder for you to make way more money, and you should be proud of that and like be proud to have a legacy with us. So that's why you're going to stay, because we make it harder for you to make more money. It's like like because he just was shitting on how much money they're getting over there and how much easier the golf is. It's like, I mean, if that was your regular job, right, and it's not you're playing golf in front of millions of people, it's like, would you go to the job that says it's way harder and I'm going to pay you way less? Like, it was an interesting kind of rant that Jay Monahan gave on Sunday, but I don't know. It deserves its own podcast and a lot of time to dive into, because there's a lot there, like both PGA Tour, live history, the players choosing to make decisions, this, that, and the other thing. There's a lot going on. So decisions to be made. It will be interesting. I really hope that, it at least makes them reconsider.
Well, it looks like we lost Matt there for a hot second.
It was
Matt, I think we lost you there for a second. Can you repeat from so, I don't know, you're kind of wrapping up your point there, but
yeah, no, it's fine. We're good. I just hope that we like get past all this like team stingers, team crushers, 54 hole shotguns, and like get back and like figure out some way to do it better than that, and like keep people not having to take like bad people's money to do it. I don't know. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be some way to do it.
I kind of like the dynamic of having like the two kind of tours and like the separate golf league, because like I know they just kind of adjusted the OWGR and seeing how all those points worked over the last couple of years. Like I don't even know if the live events are being rated. They're not. Like
they can't because as of right now, unless there's this like there has to be a written, like you have to formally write and say, hey, we want this one-off 454 hole event to count to get world points. As of right now, it has to be 72 players and it has to be 72 holes. So like evolution, right? Natural selection in a sense, right? Like we're going to end up with none of those live guys are going to have exemptions on tour.
Yeah.
So that would be nuts having like some of the guys going forwards at like the local sectional qualifying for the US Open and like grinding onto
Taylor
any
Gooch would
other
have to
like
go back and figure it out.
yeah, like are they just gonna jump on to like mini tour events just to do something in their free time? Like
Well, part of their live contracts is with the Asian tour. So they have to play in 2 or 3 Asian tour events a year as part of their contracts with live. That's what the live tour is like backed by. So like that's the funnel system for live is the Asian tour. So these guys have to
Okay.
play in 2 or 3 Asian tour events a year, but those aren't going to give them enough OWGR points, even if they win them, to still be qualifying for majors, right? So like DJ and Phil are like the exception because they've won majors, they have exemptions through that. But like Taylor Gooch in like a year isn't going to be in any of the majors because he's not going to stay in the top 50 of the world much longer when he's not earning any points, you know, like, so those are like the things that they got to like, that's the big thing that was, I think, holding up a lot of the guys from jumping because they're like, well, I do want to play in the majors and I'm not going to be able to if I can't get OWGR points from playing in this. So there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I'd be fascinated if
not
this
very easy to get through.
if this thing flops in like, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, what's the process for them to get back to the PJ Tour? I mean, I would assume Phil's done. DJ might call it a career as well,
Yeah.
but like James Piet or Andy Ogletree, like some of the younger guys, and there's even like an amateur, I think, playing on the tour right now.
Yeah.
No
So
way.
there's if you resigned, you can reapply after a year, like cool off period to be on the PGA Tour. So you would go back through, you know, Corn Ferry, mini tours, whatever.
That would be nuts. Imagine
But-
DJ in like Q School for Corn Ferry Tour.
But if you got suspended, it's different. So that's why guys like Kevin Na and DJ resigned, because if this thing falls on its face, they want to be able to go back and get back to the PGA Tours. Like that's the thought. I mean, I don't know. I'm not, you know, I haven't read all the bylaws, but I know that one was highlighted of like, if a player resigns, like they don't have to cite why they resign. They just, if they resign, they have like a 1 year cool off period basically, and then they can reapply and go back to be on the PGA Tour if they want. So that's why a decent amount of the guys resign their membership versus waiting to get suspended. And I think the guys that wait to get suspended, like you said, like Phil is just going to retire. Like the Poulter, Westwood, those guys, like they're just going to retire. They don't, you know, like they don't care. Things of that nature. So it's very there's a lot of moving pieces. Like it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the next, like, however many months their first 8 events span. I don't know, 4 months, maybe. I don't know what it takes, but it's going to be, I don't know. It's going to change every week. It seems like the field's always moving. It's going to be interesting.
So I know this US Open week, but Paul, being an Eastern Mass guy, live golf event in Bolton, Massachusetts at the International. Are they going to play it from the Tiger Tees? Are they going to play it? Are they going to play it at 8,000 yards?
Isn't one of the holes there like 700 yards or something like that? Like
Par,
800 yards of par
it's a par
six.
six. It's
Yeah.
like 841 or something.
And don't they have a green there that's like 100 yards long or something like that? Like they have some,
Yeah.
like
Place is
stupid shit at that course. I've never been up there. It is fascinating that they're calling it I mean, it makes sense, the Boston event, and it's in this small town in central Massachusetts.
And it was like ready to be shut. It was like shut down like 2 years ago. They
Yeah,
like closed the doors on that place. So I don't know.
and it's fascinating too that right, the PGA this year was supposed to be at Bedminster, right? And
Yeah.
Live Tour has an event there coming up too. So they're like it's a
They have
very
multiple
polarizing.
they have multiple Trump courses on the schedule.
Yeah.
So it's like the more you peel back the onion, the more you're like, oh Jesus Christ, you know, it's like it never ends with
Yeah,
complexity of it all. But.
Yeah.
All right, couple kind of just closing thoughts on the U.S. Open. I think you kind of mentioned, Matt, some history here this week. You know, we got guys like Brooks Koepka going for the 5th major, 3rd U.S. Open. Refill on wine just coming my way.
There you go.
But so yeah, 5th major, 3rd U.S. Open would be only the 20th player to have 5 majors. Spieth going for number 4. would only be I think would be the 30th player with 4 majors. Like that's elite. That's unheralded company. Potential first live like major winner. Like we got a lot of different things going on. And I just think too, like we have we're in a unique place. Tiger's not playing this week. We don't have the guy with 15 majors. Phil's game is really kind of a shell of what it was. And he won a major last year, but like no one's really expecting him to play well. We are very much in this transitory phase right now, right? Like who's going to be the person that kind of takes over golf? Is Scotty Scheffler going to get it done this week and like just completely own the world of golf right now and have 2 majors, win 5 times, like really kind of supplant himself there? Or are we going to see, someone like Rory get another win this week? And I don't know how many, what does Rory have, 5 majors?
That would give him 5, I think, because he has 1 US Open, 2 PGAs, and an Open. So this will give him 5, same as Brooks. Like, does JT get to 3? Because now that changes his life. We're, like you said, we're in a transitory phase. Like, there's a lot of players in this generation with 1, maybe 2. Not many people besides Brooks, and Rory is really kind of towards the tail end of this generation, really, because he's definitely on the older side. Like, Brooks is really the only one with more than 1 that like is in the last 5 years, right? It seems like we get a one-off, and now JT's got 2, but does he get to 3, 4 and like really cement himself as like the guy for majors of his generation? Or does Scotty, does just Spieth like get to 4? Like right now it's very like between here and St. Andrews in less than a month. Like, are we going to see another new name get to 1, or are we going to see people start racking them up here? It's interesting to see.
Right. And we just 2000s, that was Tiger's decade, right? Tiger owned the decade. 2010, to 2020, 2019, like there was a big discussion on like who's the player of the decade. Is it a guy like DJ who had 15 wins in a major? Was it Rory with like 18? He had like 18 wins and 4 majors. Like I don't know. Like I think we didn't get that answer from 2010 to 2019, and we've started in like a super volatile first 2 years here, where we've kind of got bits and pieces. We've got runs from different people. Obviously John Rahm, like arguably is probably the best players in the last 4 years, but like hasn't won like it. Like, and we talk about it all the time, Matt, on this podcast. But I think this could be a turning point. Like I think 2022, with the way Scheffler's played, JT gets number 2, Rory's game is solid. Like Rahm kind of lurking. So like, what's going to happen here? Colin Morikawa has got 2 in the 2020s region. Like, who's going to kind of take a stranglehold of this early part of this decade? And what does the next 10 years look like? Because everyone's going to still be on the PGA Tour in 2030, it looks like.
Yeah.
Like all these, it seems, outside of maybe, right, DJ or like
Taylor
one
Gooch.
but like outside of the live guys, like I think, like obviously Rory's like 32 or something like that, or 33. I don't know what he is. But like, I think he's going to be on PGA Tour when he's 40. So like, I think we have this star-studded, top 25 right now for a long time. Who's going to take a stranglehold? And maybe it's here at the US Open this week that we kind of get a little glimpse into it.
Would love to see it. I would
What about
love to see
Jordan?
guys start racking them up.
What'd you say, Erik?
What about Jordan?
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of faded this year. I mean, I know he won RBC Heritage, but the majors hasn't been the performances he would like. I'm sure he'd be comfortable saying that. So would love to see him get back in the mix. Nothing was more fun for me last year than watching him and Morikawa duel it out at the Open Championship. So would love to see Jordan get back in the major swing of things, get to 4, and just start, building on too. Because I mean, he's certainly a guy that when you talk about the hands and all these things that we talk about at the course fit, when we went through that earlier in the episode, like I trust him with a wedge in his hand around the greens. I trust him with the putter, maybe not from 3 feet, but I trust him with the long, awkward, slopey ones. Like I can see him having a good week. He seems to be hitting the ball fine. It's just kind of getting in his own way a little bit on the greens. So yeah, we're at a very, I think the next 4 majors, right, until we loop back to the next US Open, I would like to see some people start racking them up. Like, let's see who's going to like kind of take the reins of this thing. Or are we just going to get a bunch of one-offs again and delay it again another year? But interesting stuff. And I think the last thing we just want to hit on, it's a US Open Championship. An Open Championship means you get amateurs, you get people qualifying a million different ways to play in this field. Part of that is why the live guys were not suspended, because they qualified for it. However, they had to qualify for. So the USGO is like, we have no right to not let them play right now, regardless of their PGA Tour status. So you got, Stuart Hagestad. I think this is like his 7th or 8th major at this point, right? Because he plays Augusta seemingly every year, and at least 2 or 3 of the last US Opens. I mean, he's got to be like, he's got more major starts than half the guys on
fourth
tour.
US Open,
Yeah.
Open. And I think he's played the Masters twice from winning the Mid-Am. So,
That's just silly. Austin Greaser, and then you got the main guy, Caleb Manuel. I don't know who that is. UConn kid?
He's from UConn. Well,
Mhm.
well, insider information, he's in the transfer portal, Will, so don't let people tell you that. But Coach P, the coach at UConn, divulged that the other day. But so he Big East Player of the Year, good buddies with my guy Cam, who was a freshman after you guys left on the golf team up in Maine. Cam was his captain. This kid was a freshman when Cam was a senior in high school. He's like, this kid's going to be good. Now we got, 5 years later, he's playing in the US Open. But I remember him kind of telling me that story about his buddy from Maine. So, UConn guy, Big East Player of the Year, was Big East Freshman of the Year last year as a freshman. Almost made it, was like 2 shots off from making it to nationals as an individual. So kind of a hometown, New England kid. So excited to follow him. He's like 5'8", 140 pounds. So just to kind of see, but he was out there. My parents were out there with my brother today watching the US Open. They said Caleb put one in on 17 to like a foot or 2, and he was playing with Hovland, Aaron Wise, and Hovland just dunked it on 17 for 2 when they were out there playing. So little insight out there, but just excited to kind of follow him with, a very adjacent friendship kind of connection, and being a New England guy. Played Monday, qualified for the Corn Ferry Tour up in Maine last year. So obviously the kid can play, but we'll see what it looks like at the US Open.
Awesome. Any other closing thoughts? I know we got into a lot of different stuff there, boys, but any other closing thoughts as we go into US Open weekend? All right, boys, that's a wrap. Cheers to the pick to win.
Pick to win.
I'm going to go JT. I think JT gets it done. He's still still playing so good. Let's get to 3. Let's get rolling. Bones on the bag still. Let's go.
All right. Michael?
I think Cam Smith's pissed off about a tough week last week, but I think if he played a little more steady at the PGA, he's probably the PGA champion. So I like Cam Smith this week. I think he figures it out. I think the hands are saucy. I think he makes some putts. Gets it done at Brookline.
Paul?
I'm trying to think. Shoffley.
Oh,
I'll go with Xander.
very well rounded game. Erik?
I'm going Joaquin.
Like that. Pick.
Ooh.
Joaquin.
He's been having a good year.
Yeah.
Good.
Drives the shit out of it.
Played really well on a tough, firm, fast golf course out in LA.
Yeah.
That's Chile is getting it done all of a sudden. They gotta they gotta be up there for come 2026 or whatever 2024 Olympics. Gotta think Chile's up there at the top with the US and like Spain as a potential team to win.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right.
See you fellas. Good chatting.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.